The crisis that is currently rocking Nigeria's ruling party, the All Progressives Congress, has been blamed by even some party insiders on the leadership style of Adams Oshiomhole, the suspended national chairman of APC. Mr. Oshiomhole's method apparently has not gone down well with many heavy hitters in the party who have at various times expressed their displeasure at what they call his partial disposition in the internal affairs of some of the party's state branches. For instance, during the 2019 general election, APC was barred from fielding a governorship candidate in Rivers State, south of Nigeria, following the congregation of separate primary elections by two factions of the party, which in turn produced two candidates. As the party continues to wobble in uncertainty, there are reports of plans by some interests to convoke a national congress on March the 17th to sort out the contentious issues. Other accounts have it that President Muhammadu Buhari has decided to wade into the matter. For a larger conversation on this, we've now been joined by Senator Magnus Abe, the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State, former member of the Nigerian Senate, and one of APC's factional governorship candidates during the 2019 general election. Welcome to the program, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you on the morning show.
Yes.
Well, we all know.
Good morning, Dr.
We all know.
Great to hear from you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Well, first time we're saying this year, so Happy New Year. But, I mean, what is really happening in your party? We know that the party is divided. We know there is a conflict over the continued chairmanship of Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. How do you see all of this playing out? Would this be a make-or-break situation for the APC? Do you see the possibility of reconciliation, or this is Adam must go by all means situation?
Well, first of all, I must say that any right-thinking member of the All Progressives Congress will be very, very, very disturbed by what we see playing out in the party. First, if you take a look at the country today, you have a situation where oil prices are falling, the world economy is in great peril, and our own economy here that is dependent on oil is now, in fact, the budget now is in doubt because of the international events, both from OPEC and then from the coronavirus and all that. I believe that the last thing any patriotic Nigerian would like to see at this time is petty political skirmishing in the nation. Because I think that the president at this time needs an atmosphere that would help him to concentrate on the real issues that are affecting our nation. You know, our preparedness for the coronavirus pandemic that is now globally a threat to human beings, and our preparedness for the impact, the economic impact of the international crisis on our own economy here. Those are the things that I expect that as a ruling party should be taking most of our time, you know. Coming back to the issue of the national chairman, as you know, I am not a defender of Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. Neither am I against him. Whatever happened or didn't happen, I was amused when you described me as one of the factional governorship candidates, but that's Nigerian politics. What I would say, what I would say is that there are two aspects to this problem. First is the legal aspect, because if you have an order of a court of competent jurisdiction, or you have conflicting orders of courts, that's a legal and a judicial problem, which our own position or exposition will not change. But what I want to say is that what is at the foundation of the crisis in the APC has been the inability of our party to reflect the ideals of the president. If you look at the executive arm of government, for instance, the running of our oil revenues and all that, the president has introduced clear transparency to make things open to all people so that, you know, looking at it, you can understand where you stand. But that has not been the case in the party. Some of those who are today agitating against the chairman were some of those who benefited from the skewed way the party did things in the past. And so they know that if things are not being done their way, their fear is that it is being done the same way for somebody else because they have benefited from that kind of action. What I think we need as leaders of the APC is to try to create a party that will be fair to all members, a party where you don't have to control the chairman before you can be sure that you can get your dues and your rights as a member and a stakeholder in the party. It's not a situation where there are people who feel that if you don't control the chairman, you can't get what you want. If I was controlling the chairman before and I'm no longer controlling the chairman, I now have to bring a chairman that I can control to make sure that I can get what I want. Doesn't augur well for the party because it will lead to more crisis. What I think we need to do is to focus on a deeper and a more serious conversation. How do we get the APC to reflect our values? How do we get a party that runs by process? How do we create a party that understands that the members are supreme? You don't have to, for example, what is the basis of a crisis in Edo, for instance? People feel that, okay, if the chairman is there and the chairman has a problem with the governor has no chance of getting a second term because the chairman is against him. But that is not what the constitution of the party says. The constitution of the party provides that it is the members who should decide who gets the party's ticket. But if nobody in the party believes that that is what will happen. So it is this kind of atmosphere that is poisoning the relationships within the APC. I think that the proper conversation for us to have as party leaders is for us to discuss and find out how we can create a party that runs by process so that one person's personal feelings does not ultimately decide everything that happens in the party. As long as the party is run that way, people must still try to take control of the party because they believe that without having control of the party, it is impossible for them to be able to achieve their own objectives within the party. It need not be that way. That's what I think the primary challenge facing the APC is. How do we toe what the president is doing and run the party the way the party should be run? If at this time, with all the crises this country is facing, yes.
What is now going to happen to kick off this process that you're talking about, this reform process? Will the removal of the chairman assist in that process, or is he to be a part of this discussion that you're describing?
Now, what I think is that, first of all, the issue of removal of the chairman at this point now is hinged on a different platform. That's a legal platform. And as a lawyer, I cannot sit here and begin to discuss something that is clearly sub judice. But what I'm saying here is that whether you remove the chairman or you keep the chairman, if you don't address the fundamental issue of how we run the party, how do we build a party to which in which all members will feel that they have equal access, that their rights are protected, whether no matter their level of resources or no matter their level of influence, that all members will be equal stakeholders, and that the majority of party members will be able to decide the direction of the party in any given circumstance, from the ward to the local government to the state and even up to the national level. I think if we have that kind of party, all the energy that people are putting into trying to take control of the national secretariat of the party will be better expended on looking out for the welfare of party members, meeting the expectations of party faithfuls across the country. That's what I think the APC needs to focus upon. I believe that clearly there is a crisis of confidence in the party, which needs to be addressed. But I want to appeal to all leaders of the APC that at this time, let us put the interest of the country first. Let us be able to come together and chart a way forward that, takes into account the fears and expectations of party members and their interests all across this country. If we put our country first and we put the interest of the president ahead of the interest of individual party members. Because what is the APC? Is that we elected the president and we run the federal government. What are we as a party doing to help the president achieve the expectations of Nigerians who elected him in this moment of crisis? Clearly, fighting and decapitating one another cannot help us to move forward. That's what I think. That's a conversation I think we ought to have. If I were to go back to all the things that has happened in the party, particularly even in Rivers State, I will say some things here that are not that would not help in the healing process. And I don't think that I should contribute to creating further problems for the APC at this point. So I won't discuss that.
Okay, thank you, Senator. And just as we round up this conversation as well, how do you think this positions your party ahead of the 2023 elections? Not only the 2023 elections, but also the upcoming elections in Edo and Ondo states that we're going to see later on this year. It's argued that a lot of the reason for the loss of the PDP in the 2015 elections also had to do with a serious lack of internal party democracy. What is your take on how well positioned the APC is ahead of the next general elections?
I think starting with the Edo and Ondo elections, what the party needs to do at this point is to set up a machinery that will be able to calm nerves and fears, that will reassure party members that it will be their own decision that will fly, not the decision of any individual. I think if we're able to create a situation where that kind of conversation can be vigorously pursued and the product of that kind of engagement strictly implemented, there will be calm in Edo, there will be calm in Ondo. But as long as we have a situation where people feel that unless you control the chairman or you control the national secretariat, you cannot be able, which is what is at the
Senator, yes. Do hold your thoughts for just a moment. We're going to go on a very quick commercial break, and when we're back, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in our Abuja studio is Senator Magnus Abe, the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, APC, in Rivers State and a former member of the Nigerian Senate. Now, Senator Abe, before we went on break, you were responding to Leila's question about what all of this has to do with 2023. And I think that is important, particularly because Comrade Adams Oshiomhole himself said, look, he's being targeted by persons who hold meetings at night because of 2023. Now, for a party that just won a general election in 2019, why is it that members of your party are already obsessed with 2023? What's the connection? And do you get a sense that, you know, the leadership in the APC has learned certain key lessons from what happened in Zamfara, in Rivers, your own state, in Bayelsa, and even in Imo State?
I think that in all those cases, clearly what happened was a failure of internal democracy. And the funny thing is that some of those who were beneficiaries of the flawed process themselves now believe that if the process can be flawed in their favor, it can also be flawed against them. So that's why you see that the fight, in my opinion, is so intense. But really, as a member of this party and as a leader of the party in more senses than one, I think that it is time for us to put the interest of the nation, the interest of the party, and even our own interest ahead of pettiness. Because let me tell you something, if we don't, as a party, find a way to make compromises that will enable us all to work together, the APC will lose in 2023. Because without the certainty of the Buhari factor, you know, which would ensure that no matter what happens, we're going to have 11 million or 12 million votes that nobody else can contest for. Without that certainty, we have to rely on our unity and our ability to work together. Now, what is happening in the party is that some people feel that they have so much power and they have no need to compromise with other people. So it's either 100% or nothing. And my fear is that at the end of the day, they may actually end up with nothing. So my own appeal is that everybody needs to take a deep breath. This is not a time to beat the drums of war. First of all, Abati, as you know, the country is facing serious economic and health challenges. And at the end of the day, whatever people will think of the APC will be based on the economy. How prepared are we to support the executive to manage the coming economic crisis? That's where the party should be. Secondly, if we do not have some guarantees of internal democracy and sincerity in the party processes, it does not matter who is chairman, there will still be a fight. Because a lot of it, from what I see, those trying to remove the chairman are divided into two camps, into two groups. There are those who believe that the party is not doing well, and if the party continues on this track, we'll be in trouble in 2023. Those are people with legitimate concerns about how the party is being run. They think the party can be run better. There are those who feel that their own interests cannot be guaranteed with this chairman, so they need a chairman or a party that can guarantee their own interests even before the issues come on board. So these two groups have different agendas. But what I want to say is that those who are sincerely committed or interested or concerned about the fate of the All Progressives Congress should focus on process, not focus on individuals. Because it doesn't matter who is there. If the process can be skewed in favor of one person or the other, people are still going to try to force the process. And with Edo elections and Ondo elections coming up, except we are able to ensure that our members in those states understand that it is their own will that will triumph at the end of the day, there will be no peace. So, like they always say, you cannot talk about peace without talking about justice. We need to talk about justice. We need to focus on justice within the All Progressives Congress. I think if we are able to do that, people will relax. They will support the president to run the country properly. And when it comes to 2023, they will know that their fate is in the hands of members of the party and the Nigerian people.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry to dampen your optimism, but you expecting politicians to think about or prioritize anything above their individual needs is somewhat hopeful. 2023 is crunch time because President Buhari will not stand for re-election, but every election is crunch time. 2019 was also crunch time because it was imperative that the president gets a second term. He did not need the humiliation of being beaten after a first term. And even with that, this time last year, we had a similar spate of suspensions like what we're seeing now with Adams Oshomole. Last year, it was the former governors Amosun and Okorocha. It was the DG of Vaughan, Osita Okechukwu. It was Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Usani. And obviously, you know very well, the Rivers debacle, the Zamfara fiasco. Even at that crunch time, APC was not able to pull together and put the needs of the greater good above personal interests. What makes you think that it will be different this time?
Well, part of why I am a lot more optimistic this time is that the leader of the party is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, what this whole thing will do is to mess up his own agenda. And I sincerely do not think, nor do I expect, that the president will sit down and allow people with their own selfish interest to overwhelm his own government in his own party when he is on seat. The 2019, he was a candidate or an aspirant, and therefore also in some ways subject to the whims of what was going on. Now he is not. So I believe that at a certain point in time, he needs to look at what is going on and decide that enough is enough. We can do things differently. And if we fail to do things differently, like I said, a lot of those who think that they will have 100% of everything may actually end up with 0%. And as you know, 0 of 0 is 0. So I think that both our self-survival instincts and our desire as politicians to continue to participate in the public places on each and every one of these leaders an obligation to take a deep breath. If they fail to do so, I know that as I'm talking here, I am speaking for millions of our party members across this country who are totally fed up with the way things are being done and with the way some of these leaders are totally unconcerned about the visible concerns that we as party members can see. And there will be consequences if they fail to understand that. So I believe that disagreement in politics is normal. Crisis of this nature is normal. Even changes in personnel in the party structure is also normal if we have to have one. But it cannot be done in a manner that destroys the party. So I think that everybody needs to take a deep breath, and I'm using this opportunity to advise everybody to calmly and clearly have a rethink. This is not the time for this party to splinter and be divided into fragments at a time when the country needs us and the president needs us. That's what I will say on that.
Thank you, sir, for that word of advice, which is absolutely necessary at this point in time. Now, when we started off this conversation, you mentioned that there are two aspects to this entire situation. The first being the legal aspect, where, of course, we're seeing conflicting court orders. That's on one side. And then the second you mentioned was the inability of the APC to reflect the ideals of the president. Now, that's a very worrying statement, because the only question I can therefore ask is how much progress do you therefore feel the party has really made since 2015, if there have been inabilities to really reflect the ideals of the president?
Well, as you well would understand, a party is not just one event. There have been several things that this party has done, and has done very well, and in ways that are commendable. But in terms of internal democracy, which is actually at the fulcrum of what should hold a political party together, of what will give individual members of this party that sense of power and ownership within the party that we all belong to. I would not score the APC very high. I think that in some cases they have tried, but I also believe that it is visible to everybody that we can do better. And if we do better in that respect, I believe that party members all across the country will have greater confidence in our ability to overcome challenges. The other thing I would also say is about the party's ability to manage internal conflicts. Because every time we have situations such as this, we set up committees, and nobody ever gets to hear the report or the conclusions or the way forward from some of those efforts at using internal mechanism to settle issues. Because there are egos in the party that is bigger than the party rules. And this need not be tolerated. For example, if you look at the Rivers situation, when the crisis started, the South-South chairman of the party came with a committee. What happened to that committee? What happened to the report? You had the Aregbesola committee. What happened to that one? What happened to that report? You have various efforts at internal democracy. But the ability of the party to speak truth to its major stakeholders and contain them within the rules have been a challenge. So these are all things that the party needs to address moving forward. The issue of the character of those who actually have to lead this effort is, of course, part of the conversation. But without the support of the leaders of the party themselves, it will be difficult for any one person to be able to overcome the ingrained attitude of some of our leaders. So change is not just for the party leadership, but it is also for the major stakeholders in this party as well. We need to reflect on how we have been relating with the party.
Well, we have just about a minute to go, or even less. But quickly, it's good you brought up the issue of Rivers State. What is the status of the reconciliation efforts in Rivers APC at this moment?
Well, Dr. Abati, honestly, sitting here, I'm not aware that there's any reconciliation effort in the Rivers APC at this time. I know that the Akonde committee has been set up. That much is in the public domain, and that's all I know about that.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Magnus Abe. Thank you for coming to the morning show.